The clock on my wall clicked louder than usual that night. Each second felt heavy, echoing through my small apartment as fireworks exploded somewhere far away. Everyone else was celebrating, laughing, hugging loved ones, and I was sitting alone on my couch, wondering how my life had quietly shrunk to this moment. I thought New Year's Eve was supposed to feel hopeful. Instead, it felt like a reminder of everything I didn't have. I had no idea that before the night ended, a single knock on my door would change the way I saw kindness forever. Before we begin, if you enjoy emotional, real-life inspired stories about kindness and humanity, please subscribe to MS Tales, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps us bring more meaningful stories to life. My name is Daniel, and 2 years ago, I moved to Chicago chasing what I thought was my big break. I landed a job at a fast-growing tech company, the kind everyone wants to work for. Good salary, fancy office, and a CEO people admired from a distance. On paper, my life looked successful. In reality, it was painfully lonely. I didn't know anyone in the city when I moved. My parents were back in Ohio, my old friends were busy with their own lives, and I was working long hours trying to prove myself. Somewhere along the way, work became my entire world. I told myself it was temporary. Just one more project, one more late night. But months turned into years. That December was especially hard. The office buzzed with holiday parties and travel plans. Co-workers talked about flying home, family dinners, and New Year's trips. I smiled, nodded, and pretended I was excited too. But when people asked what I was doing for New Year's Eve, I lied and said, "Oh, just keeping it low-key." The truth was, I had no plans at all. On December 31st, I worked a half day and went straight home. The city streets were alive with energy. Couples held hands, groups laughed, and taxis rushed by full of people heading somewhere important. I stopped by a grocery store and bought a frozen pizza and a cheap soda. It felt like the appropriate meal for someone who didn't expect company. Back in my apartment, I turned on the TV. Every channel showed celebrations, Times Square packed with people, celebrities smiling, strangers hugging at midnight. I tried to focus, but the loneliness crept in quietly. I checked my phone. No messages. No missed calls. I thought about calling my parents, but I didn't want them to worry. I didn't want to admit that their son, living in a big city with a good job, was spending New Year's Eve alone. By 11:50 p.m., I muted the TV. The silence felt safer. I sat on the floor with my back against the couch, watching the lights from neighboring buildings. As midnight approached, I closed my eyes and made a wish, not for money or success, but simply to feel seen. Then, at exactly 12:03 a.m., there was a knock at my door. At first, I thought I imagined it. Who would be knocking on my door after midnight on New Year's Eve? My heart started pounding. I stood up slowly and peeked through the peephole. I nearly dropped to the floor. Standing in the hallway was my CEO, Mark Reynolds, holding a small paper bag and wearing a slightly awkward smile. I opened the door, completely stunned. "Sir? Is everything okay?" He laughed softly. "Happy New Year, Daniel. Sorry to surprise you." I didn't know what to say. My CEO barely spoke to me outside of meetings, and here he was, at my apartment, just after midnight. He looked down the hallway and then back at me. "I hope I'm not intruding." I was nearby and wanted to stop by. Nearby? My mind raced with questions, but I stepped aside and let him in. My apartment was small and plainly furnished. He glanced around, not judging, just observing. He set the bag on the table and said, "I won't stay long. I just didn't want you to be alone tonight." Those words hit me harder than I expected. He sat on the couch, and after a moment of silence, he explained. Earlier that week, he had overheard a conversation in the office. Someone had asked me about my New Year's plans, and I had given my usual vague answer. Mark said something in my voice didn't sound right. "I know what it's like to be new in a city," he said. "A long time ago, I spent a New Year's Eve alone in a tiny apartment, wondering if anyone would notice if I disappeared." I looked at him, shocked. This confident, successful man had once felt exactly like I did. He handed me the paper bag. Inside were 2 slices of cheesecake and a couple of plastic forks. "I stopped by a bakery before they closed," he said. "Figured cheesecake beats eating alone." We both laughed, and for the first time that night, my chest felt lighter. We talked for nearly an hour. Not about work, not about deadlines or profits, but about life. He asked about my family, my move to the city, and how I was really doing. No one had asked me that in a long time. At one point, I admitted how lonely I'd been. I expected polite sympathy. Instead, he listened, really listened. No interruptions. No advice. Just understanding. Before he left, he stood up and said, "Daniel, success means nothing if we forget to be human. Promise me something. This year, don't disappear into work. And if you ever feel invisible again, speak up." I nodded, holding back tears. As he reached the door, he turned around. "And next year," he said with a smile, "you won't be alone." After he left, I sat on my couch, staring at the door for a long time. The fireworks outside were fading, but inside me, something had changed. That night wasn't about cheesecake or a surprise visit. It was about someone choosing kindness when they didn't have to. In the weeks that followed, small things began to shift. Mark made a point to check in with me at work. I started joining coworkers for lunch. I even invited a few people over for dinner, something I never would have done before. Kindness, I realized, doesn't always come in grand gestures. Sometimes it's a knock on the door. Sometimes it's noticing the quiet person in the room. Sometimes it's simply showing up. That New Year's Eve taught me that you never truly know how much a small act can mean to someone else. One moment of kindness can carry someone through an entire year. So if you're watching this and you feel alone, unseen, or forgotten, please remember this: your presence matters. And if you have the chance to be kind, to knock on someone's door, to check in, to listen, do it, because you might just become the reason someone starts the new year with hope instead of loneliness.